I know it sounds crazy because I understand the market's just really, really hard at the moment for a lot of people. But in some ways, it's just the timing's just been perfect for me. If I can build and prove like product market fit and have customers coming on board at the lowest investment into employment and tools and HR and tech, then I would just be so happy. I'd be really confident. When I started this journey, I remember thinking, I don't want to build something that kind of skyrockets up and drops down. I want to build something that's really sustainable, long term. I really understand the customer. We understand what the global markets actually need. And so this slowdown, this like conservatism, this like, hey, just get it right, has almost just worked in my favor.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ways to Wealth. Today I'm joined by Vanesha. How about you give us the TLDR on who you are and how you got here?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm excited about our chat today. So I am the founder of a recruitment business called Role Call Recruitment, and more recently launched a product business called Birdeey. So Birdeey was really a way for us to be able to kind of dig deeper into a problem that exists within recruitment. And technology is enabling us to kind of solve with ease, with speed, and really help organisations have much better hiring processes so that their investment into hiring is actually returned. So we're pretty early on in our journey. So yeah, that's cool. Where I am at the moment.
Yeah, nice. There's a lot of similarities, I think, with your approach and to what I've seen recently. There'll be a trend of basically kind of traditional service businesses seeding like tech businesses.
Yeah.
And when you with Birdeey, is it selling to recruiters or to teams?
That's a really good question. It was when we started the tool, it was I had a services business and I'd been in services my whole career. And services is really interesting because you get almost like instant validation, right? Like you provide a service, someone pays you for that service, and you kind of know what you're doing is good.
Yeah.
But the challenge that I had was I just couldn't see how that was scalable. And I couldn't see how you could actually impact a lot of people with this model. So when I started my business, I remember thinking, right, there is this continuous problem that we can see. And so initially we built a tool just to be able to see the problem deeply. So it was mostly for hiring managers and people that I was doing recruitment for.
And what is the problem?
So the problem was actually there's an overinvestment. So the hypothesis was that there is an overinvestment in the early stage talent, which is job boards, recruitment agencies, and sourcing. Yet if you look at kind of what are the influences and the factors that would make somebody stay in a role, it's actually around management of expectations. And were expectations clearly set from both sides? That really has nothing to do with candidate sourcing. That actually has to do with your hiring capability, the quality of your interview and your process. So I was seeing a lot, it was almost a bit of a catch-22 because I'd see organisations spending a lot of money with me as a recruiter.
Yep.
But really the true value was kind of in their process. So the tool was helping us see what their process actually was.
Right.
And we started having people just starting to pay for it and wanting to use it for their own hiring. So it wasn't meant to be a scalable product. It just kind of became a product once we started seeing the interest in being able to actually almost like design a process with a click of a button.
So the tool enables you to basically document and then track your hiring process?
Yeah, so it will first of all take what a job description. This was crazy to me. I've never understood why we use job descriptions to sell opportunities. Job descriptions are like this really internal, functional document.
Right.
But if I was to call you for a job and say, hey, Charlie, I've got this opportunity, the first thing you're going to say is, oh, can I see more information? And I send you the internal job description. So what Birdeey does is actually takes the job description and creates it into like a really dynamic job page. So more about your culture, your people, the energy of your team, what it looks like to work in your business. So it scrapes for content and images and then creates a page. Okay. And then the information from that page then feeds into actually designing a hiring process that kind of measures capability, behaviours, attitude, culture based on that content.
Oh, okay.
So it takes it from attraction through to actually like, are we running a really good interview?
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So you basically build it for yourself?
Built it for myself, built it for my clients. and just that cyclic nature of recruitment where your end user, so the candidate, would leave their job and become a hiring manager, with then kind of getting in touch with us and saying, hey, can I use it for my next hiring process? So it just kind of started to snowball.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that's cool. So by the sounds of it, and we haven't gone back, but we've had a few conversations, how you've always been quite entrepreneurial?
Yeah,
would you say?
I think so. I've always joined businesses at quite early stage. So even in recruitment agencies, it was always one of the first one or two on board. So I think now I can reflect back and go, I think I've always just wanted to solve problems. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this recruitment space has a lot of problems, and so therefore a lot of opportunity. So yes, and my dad, like my parents migrated to New Zealand from Fiji when I was 4, so just after a political coup. And I grew up, and they separated when I was quite young, so I grew up in these two very different households. And so I would see security and financial security in two different ways. So my dad was self-employed, and for him, like having freedom and building your business and almost having kind of control of what your work looked like, for him is freedom and success. And for my mum, she's always worked in government, so like stability, like knowing what's coming tomorrow, like that just consistency has always been like freedom for her. So I grew up in two quite different environments. So I think deep down, I was probably always going to follow my dad's path, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so how long have you actually worked in recruitment? Has it always been recruitment, or was there...
I hate saying it because I always, in my mind, I think I'm still like 25. So I've been recruiting since I was 18 years.
Wow, okay. So you've really been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
And how many different regions and then companies has that spanned over the 18 years to get to today?
Predominantly in New Zealand, but I worked for a global brand called Michael Page, which was UK business. So I kind of went to the UK office and back and forth between Australia. So recruitment mostly in New Zealand, but have recruited across some of those other regions as well.
Okay. Yeah. And how long ago did you go out on your own?
Oh, so I had a business prior to this.
Okay. Was that in recruitment?
It was in, yes. So it was kind of, I left recruitment agencies at that point going, there's an opportunity to do this in a much more effective way, in the sense we're creating a lot more value for organisations and for people. So I had co-founded another business, and that organisation was looking at how to help early stage companies and founders that were getting a lot of investment to actually scale through people. So how can we design your organisation for scale? How do we ensure that when you're hiring your mates and your mates' mates, that there's some clarity of roles, that we kind of know what the expectations are. So we did that for 5 years, and that was really heavy service-based.
Yep.
And I think it was in that moment that I was like, this is not scalable. Like great, like really good value add, but not scalable.
Okay. Yeah. And it just kind of petered out, and then because it must be harder again in those businesses to, I guess, get the right dynamic with the ownership structure, and then also who's earning what. And I think a lot of the recruitment game is also quite commission driven, so as you scale, your commission expense may grow, and is it cash flow difficult then, or
in that services
in certain times in the cycle it's hard?
Yeah, I think in that business we weren't. So our company was structured where we would have consultants almost embedded into growth companies, and helping everything from like working with the board around like the strategy and the vision and how people would play. So if I think about what you've just asked me and go, right, how did it apply to our business? We were really focused on adding value, and that just meant that we ourselves were in the business. And as you probably already know, like in early stage startup, there's so much going on that we were kind of in there doing values workshops and vision workshops, and then co-founder navigation and challenges with people. And so it was actually difficult to take on more volume of clients because your time is so embedded in one place. Was it also difficult to charge correctly for all of those 100%. Things? Yeah, it was hard. And I think even, we experienced probably the same thing that some of the businesses that we're working with experiences, which is when the market was really active, and there were a lot of investment coming into New Zealand. All of our strengths were being used in different ways. The minute it slowed down and organisations were saying, "Oh, we don't really want to pay for people and culture, or we can't afford this," and we had to look internally, I think we realised that perhaps our definitions of success and actually what we wanted for ourselves and for the business was actually quite different as three co-founders.
Yeah, right.
And almost having to kind of unpack, what does this mean? Like, what does success mean? Where do we see the vision for our business? I think we can't, at that point, I just remember thinking, right, actually, I just really want to focus on this narrow problem. And I want to focus on this at a global scale. And so that was kind of my time to exit, on. But also such great learnings from that.
But you also started the recruitment business at the same time, or?
Yeah, so I started with the recruitment business first.
Right.
And said,
did you have the intention of Birdeey the whole time?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So it was almost going back and say, okay, the market wants from an agency or an external service CVs for X amount. But actually, there is this kind of grey area of who takes accountability if that person doesn't work out within 6 months.
Right.
And where does accountability actually sit, and how can we influence accountability as a services business? So those are all the questions that were in my mind, which is what ultimately led to Birdeey being created.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I guess, what would you say the biggest challenges have been like in this approach that's probably slightly different to what you've seen? Because what you've seen is lots of early stage startups that have lots of funding.
Yeah.
And you've built a services business and you are bootstrapping a tech business.
Yeah.
Obviously, those are very different.
Yeah.
Do you have any views around that? Has it influenced your decision? Do you feel like you have been somewhat encapsulated? That's probably the wrong word. Do you believe the hype of VC, or is this an intentional decision to not go down that route?
It's a really interesting question. It's been such a learning, as I said, like to go down and build a product and to have the belief that this is really at global scale is just not something that you just wake up and decide. Like, that's probably been a really hard journey for me. And there's been things that have happened along that journey that were just unexpected. Like, I'm not someone that's ever really lacked like confidence or validation in what I do. Like, and again, in services, like, you ask me for something, I give it to you, you pay me, you're happy, they're happy. Like, I kind of know that I'm doing a good job. I think building a product, you have no idea, right? And validation is hard.
You're desperately trying to find out.
Yeah.
And you want to use as many tools as you can to work that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a process that takes a long time.
Yeah.
Typically, sometimes you hit on things fast and you get really fast adoption.
Yeah.
I think the gaming platform I built grew very quickly. On the back of very, very limited functionality in the beginning, but we had a good hook and it grew very quickly, and then the functionality came. Whereas I think of Acuity, much bigger problem, higher stakes, and I guess we are pushing against the status quo a bit more than with the gaming platform.
Yeah.
So it takes a bit longer, and it's a bit of it's definitely been more of a thought process of the product, because it's a much deeper product. And I think the deeper you go, it's great if you can get there, but if you end up boiling the ocean and no one uses any of the products, like, you can spend lots of money on like engineering to have nothing kind of happen. And, like, for example, we've seen what happened with Futureverse this week in New Zealand, which is a really big deal for the New Zealand startup scene. The kind of New Zealand crypto scene for sure, but also venture at large, and kind of like valuations and fundraising, and even utilizing kind of government programs to build stuff. And you can basically, and we've seen this in government.
Yeah.
We've seen this in VC. You can spend many, many millions of dollars building stuff that no one ever gets to use.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that necessarily anything that happened with Futureverse was wrong, but what happened is they built a whole lot of tech and they were funded to do so, and they were encouraged to do so by the people that funded them. And they was obviously in a situation where they must have been spending a lot of money every month.
Yeah.
And I hear some of these burn rates out there and I go, wow, that is just, if your assumptions change, if like everything changes tomorrow, to unwind that or turn that ship out of the way of whatever's coming is going to be so difficult, like almost impossible. So over the last kind of couple of years, I mean, this whole process of building Acuity, I guess my perspective on fundraising and how to build business has drastically changed. And, you know, the metric should no longer be how many people you have, how much you've raised. Like, those are metrics that don't matter anymore. And if you're using them as validation metrics, like you're using kind of, I'd say that as like, that's kind of thinking in analogies. So you've heard that a big team and lots of fundraising is an indicator of success. In a like short form content, you haven't really kind of thought about it. And there's a really good Diary of a CEO episode out that just came out. It's what's his name? I'll have to find it. But there's a really good episode that came out from an investor, like a fundamental investor that's super into Buffett, and he was talking about this dynamic of actually how do you earn income while building equity in a way that's safe, like relatively safe, and has less blow up risk, because you spend so long, like with the whole Birdeey thing, and you know, even with Acuity and everything, iterating. All you actually need is to make progress every day. And if you just continue playing the game, you are so much more likely to succeed. And I think that's the trend that's got to shift and is shifting in real time. And it changes the power dynamics between investors and capital and entrepreneurs and founders and teams, because you don't need the capital necessarily. There are creative ways to do it, because for every dollar you raise, you give away a part of your soul. It still costs you.
Did you have, so can I just ask, it's really interesting, like with your gaming business, has that kind of influenced your approach now, or is it more the market
massively,
that's approach? Right. Okay.
Massively. So many parts of that business and the outcome, what we were building, the time we were building in, all of it has massively influenced how I think about venture, how I think about New Zealand venture, how I think about kind of building product, how I think about exiting product. You know, you can have a good business, you can have a bad business that exits well for early investors that actually ends up going to zero within 2 years later, right? Like we were, when I think back of the gaming business, where we were sat in the industry, like globally, you know, by 2020 and 2021, when the gaming was really in its boom, like how many very bad companies ended up IPOing for hundreds of millions of dollars, even though they had like a fraction of the amount of users we had when we sold. So it's in a big way, but most of it was cap table structure in the early days that we've changed massively in this project. Kind of knowing our worth and holding on to our kind of position, and also we actually had good investors in the gaming business too. We have exceptional investors in this business. But it wasn't an investor problem. It was a cap table problem because we gave away too much of the company early. So when we needed to go to America and get venture capital, we were essentially too diluted to effectively be interesting to the really good VCs, because we had quite good traction. And that kind of creates a dynamic where you're on the back foot. And in an industry where everyone's burning money, and it's a race to the bottom, it's it's basically that example, right, where, okay, a handful of those businesses in the top 20 went on to make someone money, but maybe the people in the public markets that are the people that ended up holding the actual equity at the end have a fraction of what they invested. So there can be a difference between a good business and a good exit, and vice versa. So that was a big learning. So I guess my new methodology, or how I've kind of progressed my thinking, is how do you take all the great things about venture and tech and innovation and the people that and the mindset behind venture, but then approach it with maybe a more kind of Buffett Munger style fundamental approach. And that's definitely influenced.
It's interesting. I think probably really similar to you, actually, because I was consulting at a time to SaaS companies that were getting a lot of investment and just scaling and offices and people. I've seen it. I've seen exactly what you described. And in some ways, I know it sounds crazy because I understand the market's just really, really hard at the moment for a lot of people. But in some ways, it's just the timing's just been perfect for me. I think if I can build and prove product market fit and have customers coming on board at the lowest time of investment into employment and tools and HR and tech, then I would just be so happy. I'd be really confident. And when I started this journey, I remember thinking, because I'd come out of this world of lots of investments and talking to a lot of incubators and things that were supporting these businesses, I just assumed it was the path I had to take. But to your point, it's almost, I don't want to build something that kind of skyrockets up and drops down. I want to build something that's really sustainable, long term. I really understand the customer. We understand what the global markets actually need. And so this slowdown, this conservatism, this hey, just get it right, has almost just worked in my favor.
I can't agree more with the it doesn't need to be the shiny way. It just needs to be the way that gets you there in the end, and gets you there with the most amount of equity left as a founder. At the end of the day, as a founder and business owner, you're doing this because of some larger purpose mostly, and because you probably really enjoy doing it. And it's always great to do something really difficult. It gives you a lot of, even if you fail, it gives you a lot of fulfillment going after it. But you want to end up with something at the end. Some of you want to retain that. Ideally, I would say that you bring on people and you give your teams skin in the game so that they are also bought in and owners like you. Because I guess if we think about the recruitment position and where the world is, if we make the assumption that teams are now going to be smaller, that in my mind means that culture and team dynamics are going to need to be stronger. But you will just have, and this is my thesis, is that you will have just many more independent businesses running with small teams, and the way that it should operate is on an equity kind of situation where employment becomes basically, what we call in, I guess, this kind of post-labor economics world, patron equity, which means that people that work on the thing have an equity stake. And if you took it really far, even potentially in some cases, your customers may have equity in whatever it is that they're involved in. So it's taking that kind of, I guess, crypto-esque approach to it, but without the kind of, I guess, the degenerate gambling. But I think that a lot of the principles behind a lot of these crypto communities, I looked at the Futureverse thing yesterday and I go, wow, Aaron put out a tweet and 21,000 people liked it. This is a big deal. Lots of people were engaged in whatever they were doing. And I haven't seen yet really anything negative of substance. And I think the sentiment seems to be that they gave it a good nudge. And I agree. I wouldn't want to, because it's such a hard time. You get yourself into these situations when you're trying to grow and you have a big ambition. And the more leverage you use, and this is a form of leverage, venture capital is, the easier it is to blow up. And I think the message is, can you design a situation where it's impossible for you to blow up? I think that's the big lesson. And, who knows what's going to happen to some of the IP, and hopefully, there can be a process where people's jobs and the work, the hours and hours of productivity actually becomes used. Because technology goes out of date real quick. Code that's not used is basically a lost cause.
Well, I think because as I was coming here, I was thinking to myself, like, I've had to make some pretty big decisions around like wealth, right? And like, what does financial security look like for us? Because on one hand, I could have a really successful, profitable services business. And I'm actually kind of going, you know what? Yes, I could do that, but I don't want to, right? I want to kind of put everything on this big bet. And what does it actually mean? It probably means less security for us moving forward. But I guess, you kind of do those things, and even with Futurists, you do them because you have to believe, right? Like, there needs to be a little bit of insanity when you've gone, I'm just going to dream big, I'm going to go for it. It's always sad to see when those things don't work out. But I can also understand that you are kind of, in some ways, almost feeling like you're hedging your bets. And I was traveling with my husband in London, and because my husband's like, he's a 9-to-5er, go to work, finish work at 5 and doesn't think about it. And so work for him is kind of a way to like support his life. And I think sometimes he just supports what I do, but I don't know if he really understands like what we're doing, or the size of what I'm trying to do. And I said to him, like, imagine just building something that's going to change the way that we live, like change the way that we work or change the way that we do something. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, think like Uber's completely changed how we travel in our lifetime. Like Airbnb's changed how we book accommodation in our lifetime, right? Like, you almost do these things with the vision and the belief that maybe you could change the way that someone does something.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's an interesting perspective, because you could say, oh, well, there's a few things going on here. You guys aren't all in, you're not focused. A lot of questions become, well, what's the focus in startups? And I've definitely been guilty of not being focused enough and saying yes to too many things at various times. But there isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer, because... because you have all these decision paths, and typically, you always get to, or mostly get to, make the next decision, right? So the objective is make sure the decision tree doesn't end up in the next decision being that you can't play anymore. So I think that it's interesting. I think that knowing when to put fuel on the fire is actually important in the startup game. So another lesson I think that I've learned in recent times, especially in observing our portfolio, the ecosystem of founders and startups in what we're doing with Acuity, is the discipline to know when to ramp things up and scale things back. And I think that's really interesting, and being really brutal about, okay, am I really getting the money back, or am I justifying it, and I haven't really proven that I'm getting my cost of acquisition back in 4 months? Have I made some like assumptions in that calculation that kind of makes me feel like I should be blowing money on ads, or have I really proven that I'm actually going to get that money back? And that's something that for us, like, we're just not about spending money on at an organizational level if we're not certain it's going to be good or be net positive. Obviously, everyone has a bit of wastage, but like, ads is a great example of new business owners feeling like they need more customers. And like with our offer, actually, because, our Acuity private membership is catered for business owners, founders, as well as obviously people that are working in careers. But, it's always, it became a thing where we were kind of talking to customers when we were working out our own offer. And the amount of times the conversation would go to, I need more leads, or I need more customers. And you never want to, or for us, we don't want to get in a situation where we're trying to help someone get more customers.
Yeah.
You know, because I kind of feel like, and I don't know if I feel about the same way with recruiting as well, but it's like, you have to really know your marketing and know your sales. And until you know who you are and what you're selling and really know that yourself as a team, I don't think you are going to get a good result going external.
Yeah.
Like, I think that really needs to be clear. And I would say that is something that's a good practice to have. It's like, experiment to your heart's content, like iterate, but like, you don't need to scale spend unnecessarily or feel you need to.
No, I think it's probably where we've been quite fortunate is that the tool started to kind of almost highlight this consistent problem. There was actually, I remember thinking like, I want to solve this problem, and starting to kind of almost question and do discovery surveys. And we started surveying people in the US and Australia and the UK. And actually, yes, there was an agreement to the problem and an understanding of the problem, but it wasn't the most important problem to solve. Right. So we kind of had this pivot, but where we've been lucky is we haven't had to, because we've almost been customer-led and responding to the customer coming to us and saying, hey, can we use this? Yeah. We've been able to kind of generate revenue from our MVP. Right. Without having to kind of build other products and features or go too far. Yeah, that's cool. And the good thing is a services company allows us to kind of keep testing that.
Keep doing that, yeah.
But which is interesting with your platform, because I guess are you finding that your users are coming in and wanting something from it and then asking for additional services?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, for us, it's definitely like, there's a few different parts to the platform. Obviously, you can, in the most cost-effective way, dollar cost average into, US equities, ETFs, and crypto. Yeah. And we also do like a really good savings rate on the cash in the account, which is, I think the best in the country right now, but it is in US dollars. Yeah. So you've got that kind of transactional aspect of it, which is very kind of potentially completely hands off. Yeah. But it was never our intention to just have that. We believe there's a pathway, and basically as you build that up, there's more decisions you have to make, and often you need more confidence, and the bigger the decision, the more you really want someone impartial that doesn't have skin in the game to get a decision. Yeah. So that's why the business model is a membership fee. Mm-hmm. And then what we're trying to do is take out the incentives to get someone to take a specific action. Right. So that, if a founder or business owner or just anyone wants to come to Acuity and wants to speak to one of our independent experts, they know that we're paying them directly and they don't have a kind of, a dog in the race. Yeah, sure. So that's kind of important to us. And then, obviously the different problems change from person to person. Typically we have our own sweet spots. And I just found that the problem isn't actually that you don't have enough leads, probably. There's probably a different issue, but that's the easiest thing. Because when someone thinks, oh, I need to make more money, I need to be more successful, they automatically think, I just need more customers. Yeah. I need more growth. And I think that may not always be the case. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of Birdeey then, what does success look like 5 years from now? If you look, you talked about your partner, you talked about you guys have different kind of ways of which you work, and, there's maybe a different kind of ambition for what you want to do with your kind of time on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the goals and outcomes that you guys have are actually different. So for the company and for how you would like to be kind of operating, is it mostly the same 5 years from now?
No, I think for me, I really believe that we've got an opportunity here to kind of to take a big chunk of this HR tech space. And so my focus at the moment is just looking at bigger markets. So I'm over in the US next year for a little bit, and also just exploring some customers in the UK. So the intent is to really start to kind of just get closer to those customers and those bigger organizations, and start to kind of identify where we sit. I've been doing that at a much smaller scale, like Australia and New Zealand. And so trying to understand, like, within the existing platforms that exist now, like, where is our value prop and what are we doing differently? And where are some of those opportunities? So I think my husband's just in for the ride at this point, but it's not been I said to you before, it's definitely not been an easy journey. Like, I think when I started, as I've just said to you before, I've kind of never been someone that's like lacked confidence in what I do. And I think when I started and to hear all these stats around only 2% of women can raise capital, or it can really be really difficult in the HR tech space. It's kind of, I think I remember hearing that a lot and just kind of going, oh, what am I going to do with this, and how is it affecting my confidence, and what do I believe to be possible? Because to your point earlier, like, this is right now we're organically funding, we're self-funding, and so the money we're putting in has to have an outcome, right? Otherwise, I just, it would feel like a waste. And so I'm just determined that this will be a scalable product. And so we just have to make it happen. Like, I hear those stats now and I kind of go, cool, well, I'll just be that 2%, or cool, I'll just make sure that we've got a slice of that HR tech space. It's great that it's worth so much. It's great that there's a lot of players in it, right? It means that there's a problem to solve. So I think a lot of this has just been, like, I'd say a year of mindset, like a year of really actually also having to challenge myself and say, it's okay if we just want to be over here. But as I've kind of constantly gone back around, what does being over here mean? And why does it not feel satisfying? Like, keep coming back to here. So I think we've had to have conversations around how will we move the dog.
Okay.
So
okay. So you're in, as in like, you're in a sense you're preparing to not be in New Zealand anymore.
Yeah, I just don't think it's possible in New Zealand.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Well, that's worth stress testing in itself, right? Actually, and also, what are the ways? And the questions I'd be asking right there is, okay, what do the different scenarios look like? What does it look like the business operates in X place, but you are here? What looks like if the business is operating somewhere else, and what does that look like? And are there different? Can we do different modeling? Like, can we have some different scenarios here that actually say, well, this is what it looks like if we continue bootstrapping and we do it in New Zealand, and we're really efficient and we have some really clear milestones and things we're going to achieve. Like when you go overseas, you really make the most of it, right? Whereas if you're in a market, you may not make the most of it because you're there all the time. So you might take 100%. It for granted. So it's like, it's being intentional right across everything. But that's a big thing to talk about, is obviously where you live. It's such a huge thing. And I understand that a lot of people, especially, it's kind of interesting though, because I think, at least it's not overly regulated. So at least you can build something here and go other places. For a fintech, it's very difficult to operate in other markets 100%, because of the regulation. So it gives you some freedom. And I think that one thing that I would say is, like, it always takes longer than you expect. And just keep making progress every day. Like, it doesn't matter if it's big progress. Just make progress every day.
I like when you said that, because I think I do like things done quickly. And again, like, my background is like used to being quick. And so where I think the New Zealand startup community has just been phenomenal is, like, it's been that understanding of, like, these things just take time to build. And, like, the more founder stories I hear and the more kind of journeys I hear, the more kind of like, oh, okay, I feel like I can breathe now, because it's not like you think of something and tomorrow it's built, right? So it has been a really good, it's interesting having these two businesses run side by side that are so completely different, and just the context switching between, like, being reactive over here versus being really intentional and deliberate over here. It's just been interesting journey.
Well, it's very difficult for humans to comprehend compounding anyway. But on an incremental basis, compounding isn't obvious until you look out further. So that's important. And what I've learned from public markets, especially, is that it's very easy to have a very intelligent sounding bear case. So, these are all the things that are clearly what could go wrong. You can increase your IQ or your perceived IQ better by pointing out negatives than you can about pointing out the positives. So And I've been definitely guilty of this, of being, been really good at looking at bear cases and shorts for different companies over the years. And it makes you feel smart. But, it's actually quite easy to sound smart if you with business, because business is so inherently hard.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming on and telling your
Thank
story.
you.
It's been fun.
No, it's interesting.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.